Hey there, night owl. Tonight, you're not just drifting off, you're dropping down. London, 1873, hums above your head like a restless hive, but you've taken a wrong turn, a narrow stair that smells of coal dust and yesterday's rain. Welcome to the underside of empire, where the gas lamps flicker, the cobblestones sweat, and history keeps all the lights off. You clutch a cheap paper map that's already bleeding ink. The corner says public conveniences, which is either an honest label or a warning. Your boots slip on something unidentifiable, probably time itself. And from far above comes the late evening clatter of hooves, the shout of a newsboy, the long sigh of an omnibus that knows tomorrow will be exactly the same. Down here, the air thickens. A single candle struggles to be brave, guttering in a wall sconce that hasn't been cleaned since Victoria's coronation. You can smell the century: smoke, sweat, starch, and secrets. People think history happens in parliaments and palaces. They're wrong. It drips through cracks, collects behind bricks, and waits for someone foolish enough to follow the smell. Congratulations, that's you. The last patch of daylight shrinks behind the stairwell. You're officially underground. A rat, the size of respectable toast, eyes you with casual contempt before vanishing into a gap in the wall. The echo it leaves behind sounds almost polite, like applause for your bad decisions. You move on, one cautious footstep at a time. The bricks sweat, the ceiling drools, and you realize the ground isn't flat. It tilts, always downwards, as if gravity here has ambitions. You find a door, iron, swollen with rust. You give it the traditional London greeting, a reluctant shove. It answers with a groan that could wake a dead, though the dead down here are probably used to the noise. On the other side waits a corridor lined with pipes, fat ones, thin ones, some that throb faintly as if carrying the city's pulse. Steam curls from a vent like a sigh through bad teeth. Somewhere water trickles, somewhere else something ticks. The empire's underbelly is alive, and like any living thing, it smells terrible. Pause. Listen. Above you, the world is all order. Trains running on timetables, ledgers balancing, clerks writing with moral posture. Below, everything seeps, leaks, and contradicts itself. It's London's other truth, the one it pretends not to know. You keep walking. Boot heels tap, candle shakes. You pass a sign, painted straight onto the brick. No entry without lantern or faith. You have one of those, you think, probably the lantern. A voice drifts from ahead, hoarse laughter echoing through water and iron. You turn a corner, and there it is, the first chamber of the forgotten city. Half cellar, half cave, roof arched like a whale's ribs. A dozen oil lamps hang from hooks, smoking out half their light. Beneath them sprawls the kind of scene respectable London pretends doesn't exist. Men with faces the colour of ash are sorting through heaps of rags, bones and bottle glass. Women squat beside baskets of copper scrap. A boy no older than 10 pokes at a heap of mud with a stick, humming a hymn you can't quite place. Welcome to the toshers market, where fortune is measured in what other people flush. One man fishes coins out of a puddle, wipes them on his sleeve, and pockets them like trophies. Another lifts a length of metal pipe with reverence, declares it good brass, and sells it on the spot for a halfpenny. Everything here used to belong to someone else. Down here, ownership is a temporary mood. A woman looks up from her work, squints through the gloom. "New, are ye?" Her accent could peel paint. You nod because you don't have the nerve not to. She grins, showing teeth that have gone full sepia. "Keep close to the light, love. The darkness got bad manners." That advice hangs in the air, as heavy as the smell. You breathe through your sleeve and press deeper. Somewhere beyond the chamber, a tunnel opens like a throat, swallowing the lamplight whole. You follow. The sound changes first. The chatter fades, replaced by the slow drip of unseen water. The floor turns slick, the air cold enough to taste. You realize you've stumbled into the beginnings of Joseph Bazalgette's grand experiment, the sewer system that saved the city from its own optimism. Imagine it, miles of brick arteries laid beneath the metropolis, carrying away everything London didn't want to admit it produced. In 1858, they called it the Great Stink. The Thames turned from river to rumour. Parliament nearly evacuated itself from the smell. Bazalgette's sewers were supposed to fix that, and they mostly did. But like all good intentions, they created side effects, pockets of darkness where no one was supposed to live, but somehow everyone did. You touch the wall. Warm. That means water, recent, or life. You can't decide which is worse. Something scurries past, too quick for sight, too deliberate for comfort. You tell yourself it was a cat. London has cats everywhere, even down here, although you suspect this one pays rent in nightmares.
The tunnel widens into a brick-lined artery. Your candle flickers, then steadies. Ahead, a faint gold light glows like a promise. You follow it, boots slapping echoes that come back a heartbeat late. That delay feels personal. When you finally reach the light, you find a man sitting beside a lantern and a bucket of something that might be soup. He looks up without surprise. "Evening. Mind the drop." You glance down. At your toes yawns a hole the size of a carriage wheel, water swirling lazily within. Steam rises. "Old overflow," he says. "City's got veins, same as folk. Block one, it swells somewhere else." He stirs his bucket. "Same with sins, eh?" You nod, because what else do you do when the city starts preaching through its maintenance staff? He gestures with his spoon. "Down there, you'll find the real London, not them painted shops and marble halls. Down there's where we all end up, sooner or later." He grins. "Course, some just get a head start." You thank him and move on, though the echo of his words lingers like soot. The tunnel curves. A draught carries the city's breath, coal, rot, gin. You feel the weight of everything above, the cobbles, the carriages, the careful morals. It's all pressing down, politely but firmly, the way society always does. And then, without ceremony, you arrive. The tunnel opens into a wide cavern lit by dripping torches. Arches of brick rise overhead, blackened by decades of smoke. Stalls line the walls, makeshift tables built from doors in coffin lids. People move between them with the casual purpose of a marketplace, though what they're trading doesn't always look legal or alive. You've reached the forgotten city, the subterranean twin of London. Up there, the empire measures wealth in colonies and coin. Down here, it measures survival in spoons. Everything above ground has a reflection below, a distorted mirror made of soot and need. A bell rings somewhere, low and hollow. The market stills. You can feel the vibration through the soles of your boots. Someone mutters, "Curfew." You don't ask whose. Down here, rules come from whoever shouts them first. The lamps dim. A hush settles. And for the first time, you understand why London never truly sleeps. It just dreams in layers. The bell's echo fades, and the crowd melts like fog. A few lamps stay lit, pale eyes in the dark. You stand in the half-light, unsure whether you're trespassing or auditioning. The silence here has texture. You can almost hear the city's heartbeat thudding through the bricks. A woman in a patched shawl steps from behind a stall. She carries herself like a duchess who misplaced her castle. "Mind the rats," she says. "They think everything that falls belongs to them." You thank her. She doesn't answer. She's already gone into the dark with the quiet authority of someone who's been forgotten professionally. A cart creaks past, pulled by a donkey that looks more philosophy than animal. The driver nods politely and hums a hymn about salvation in minor key. You realize you're breathing in someone else's century, a blend of hope and mildew that tastes like unfinished stories. The city above pretends these tunnels don't exist, but they're the foundation that keeps its boots dry. Down here, you can see the cost of progress brick by brick, every arch a signature, every crack an unpaid bill.
A flicker catches your eye, a puddle reflecting something brighter than the lamps. You crouch. The water trembles, shows you a warped face, and behind it, shapes of the world above. A row of mansions, a carriage wheel, the polished shoes of a clerk rushing to catch a train. The image ripples, then breaks. The reflection is a lie, but it's a polite one. You stand, dust off your coat, and follow the faint incline that leads back toward daylight. The climb takes longer than you expect. The stairs are narrow, uneven, and decorated with what archaeologists will one day call mystery residue. Halfway up, you find a tin plaque bolted to the wall. Property of the Metropolitan Board of Works. Trespassers will be damp. A warning and a promise. You keep climbing until the air changes, sharper, colder, with that peculiar metallic tang of London fog. A final push, a groan of hinges, and suddenly you're back in the open world, blinking beneath a gas lamp that hums like a drunk wasp. You've surfaced somewhere behind Fleet Street. The cobblestones shine with rain and coal dust. Above, the spire of St. Bride's leans into the mist, ringing midnight as if to say, "Welcome back, sinner. Try not to trip on your conscience." You breathe. The air still smells faintly of sewage, but at least it's aristocratic sewage now. Your shoes leave wet ghosts on the stones. The city stretches before you, elegant, enormous, and completely unaware that you've just crawled out of its stomach. You brush off your coat, straighten your posture, and join the slow parade of late-night wanderers. Clerks released from overtime, coachmen closing tabs, a poet arguing with fog. Every face glows briefly in the lamplight, then vanishes. You feel a strange affection for them all, fellow travelers above the abyss. A thought nudges at you. Every empire builds its own underworld. You've seen London's. Now you want to know what kind of dream keeps the rest of it walking upright. You turn a corner, step through the mist, and the story tilts toward the surface. The streets above, elegance and rot. Congratulations, you are now officially respectable, or at least damp in a respectable district. It's 1 a.m., and London is dressed for inspection. Gas lamps tremble in the wind, painting halos on wet cobbles. Carriages whisper past like gossip on wheels. The city wears its wealth the way a dowager wears pearls. Proudly, heavily, and a little too tight. You start walking west, toward the glow of the Strand. Shop windows sleep behind their iron grates, displaying everything a citizen might need to prove they're thriving. Gloves, clocks, imported teas, moral superiority. A cat perches in one window, pretending to guard it. You both know he's on break. A newspaper flutters against your boot. The Times, industry triumphant. You pick it up, read a headline about a new factory opening in Manchester, then another about children found working there with admirable diligence. Victorian optimism. Never underestimate its ability to rebrand tragedy as progress. A handsome cab rattles by, splashing you with history's favorite cologne, cold mud. Inside sits a man in a top hat so tall it needs planning permission. His face glows pale in lamplight, half saint, half oyster. He clutches a ledger, not because it's valuable, but because it explains him. For men like that, numbers are prayer, profit is grace, and compassion is a rounding error. You duck into a narrow lane to avoid another tidal wave of hooves. The lane smells of bread, beer, and indecision. Somewhere, someone is frying something that used to be alive. A sign creaks overhead. Mrs. Cribben's Temperance Tea Rooms. Open late, judgment-free. You push the door. It's unlocked, of course. Sin needs somewhere to rest. Inside, warmth hits you like flattery. The walls are lined with moral pamphlets and questionable wallpaper. A brass kettle sings on the stove, accompanied by the gentle percussion of rain on glass. The patrons are exactly what you'd expect. Earnest reformers halfway through a sermon and a cinnamon bun, and tired workers pretending tea is enough. The woman behind the counter nods. Cup of courage? You nod back. The tea tastes faintly of boiled virtue. She chats about the fog, the price of coal, and the rumors of ghosts near Blackfriars Bridge. You make the appropriate noises, though you know most London ghosts can't afford the rent. Outside again, the fog has thickened into a philosophy. You could slice it and serve it with pudding. You follow the lamps eastward until the air grows sharper, the pavement narrower. This is the seam where rich and poor share a border, but never a conversation. On one side, stone houses with curtained windows and brass knockers polished within an inch of vanity. On the other, alleys so thin the walls argue. A sudden shout, a costermonger closing shop, calling good night to the world in vowels you could chew. His cart overflows with bruised apples, cheap oranges, and moral fiber. He waves at you. Mind the puddle, governor. You nod, promptly step in it, and discover the puddle has opinions. Ahead, a group of night watchmen huddle under a lamp, comparing mustaches and boredom. They glance your way, decide you're too sober to arrest, and return to their important task of existing loudly. Farther up the street, a beggar sings in a cracked baritone. The tune is a hymn. The lyrics are taxes. He tips his hat. You tip your conscience. You stop at the corner of Drury Lane. A poster flaps on a wall. Grand exhibition of mechanical marvels. Underneath, another notice reads, Found, small dog, one eye, limited optimism. London loves its contrasts.
You take a moment to watch the street breathe. A lady in silk glides past, holding her skirts just above the mud. Behind her, a barefoot boy carries a basket twice his size. They pass a preacher shouting about virtue and an urchin selling matches. It's a duet called Civilization. The chorus is coughs. Somewhere nearby, church bells mark the hour, slow and resigned. You lean against a lamppost and realize that even above ground, the city feels underground. Every sound is muffled by soot. Every face glows and then disappears. You remember the tunnels, the flicker of lamps, the whisper of water, and understand. The same river runs through both worlds. Up here, it wears perfume. Down there, it tells the truth. A carriage stops at the curb. A gentleman steps out, gestures toward a shadowed doorway, and disappears. Moments later, laughter spills into the fog. London's heartbeat quickens after midnight. Respectability loosens its collar. You walk on, past taverns humming with low-grade optimism, past tailors still stitching dreams under gaslight. The city feels infinite, like a story that refuses editing. And somewhere beneath your feet,
The tunnels you left behind are still breathing. You think of them as you turn toward the river. The Thames waits like a long, dark sentence, half written, half erased. Fog curls off its surface, swallowing the bridges one arch at a time. A barge horn moans somewhere upriver, the empire sighing in its sleep. You rest a hand on the railing, feel the vibration of current and commerce. Coins, corpses, confessions, they all pass through here eventually. You wonder how many secrets this water has carried out to sea. Probably enough to fill a library, though none of the books would end happily. A shape moves in the mist, a lighterman guiding his craft with slow, perfect strokes. He whistles a tune older than the docks, something about sailors and regret. You listen until it fades, then turn inland. The night has more to show you. The rain begins again, thin and apologetic. It patters on your hat like polite applause. You turn from the river and wander inland through a patchwork of smells: coal smoke, horse sweat, fried onions, and cheap perfume, the four elements of metropolitan weather. Every street you enter seems to be rehearsing a different play. In one, servants scrub steps until their knuckles match the marble. In the next, a violin hums in a basement while a landlady scolds time itself. The contrast is exhausting and addictive. London never lets you feel you've reached the main scene. At the corner of Holborn and somewhere you can't afford, you meet a light lamper finishing his shift. His pole clinks softly against the glass. "Good night, sir," or "good morning," depending how you spend it. You ask him if he ever sees the city in daylight. "Once," he says. "Didn't like it. Too honest." He tips his cap, vanishes into the fog, and you keep walking. Soon, the pavement changes, from stone to something that feels uncertain about its career, half cobble, half memory. The smell deepens. You know it instantly: damp brick, stale ale, humanity stored without ventilation. You've arrived in Clerkenwell, where the ground has opinions and the drains hold grudges. The windows here are barred, but not for security. They're there to stop the houses from running away. A baker's cart rattles by, the loaves steaming in the cold air. You buy one, stale, heroic, and chew it as you walk. Every crumb tastes faintly of ash and ambition. Somewhere church bell rings 3 times. The sound feels like an invitation and a dare. You realize you've been circling the same block for 10 minutes, the fog closing behind you each time until the world is no larger than your heartbeat. Then you see it, a narrow door in a wall of soot-black brick. Above it, a sign: "Maintenance access, authorized personnel only." London's favorite phrase. You hesitate just long enough to remember you've never been authorized for anything. Then you push the door. It opens with the sigh of an overworked century.
The air that greets you is 10 degrees colder and several decades older. A spiral of stone steps descends into the dark, the sort of staircase designed by someone who hated ankles. Each tread glistens with condensation. Each echo returns a little later, as though reluctant to climb back up. Halfway down, you find graffiti scratched into the wall with a nail: "Tom P., 1869, still owing rent." History's most reliable signature. You reach the bottom and light your lantern. The flame shivers, but stays. Ahead stretches a corridor of perfect Victorian brickwork, curved and symmetrical, the handiwork of a man who believed geometry could save souls. Water gurgles somewhere behind the walls. The sound is soothing if you don't think too hard about what's in it. A rat scurries across your path, tail high like a banner. He pauses, judges you, and decides you're not edible yet. You nod respectfully. Professional courtesy. A few yards on, the tunnel opens into a vault where iron pipes cross overhead like the ribs of a giant. Each one bears a stenciled warning: steam, high pressure, do not pray near valve. You wonder if anyone ever obeyed. A man's voice drifts from the dark. You lost, friend? You turn the lantern and find a figure perched on a crate. Long coat, lamp-black beard, expression of someone who's been here long enough to know all the drips by name. He grins. Relax, you ain't the first tourist. I'm Ned. Welcome to the arteries. He gestures around with a lump of bread that might once have been legal currency. City's alive, see? Pipes for veins, bricks for skin, rats for dreams. We just keep it circulatin'. You ask what he does. Whatever needs doin'. Clear blockages, fetch bones, fetch gossip. Mostly we stop the dead things from arguin' with the livin' ones. He laughs, coughs, spits into the stream. Better down here than up there. Up there's got rules. He offers to guide you. You follow because the alternative is guessing, and London loves to punish guessing. The passage narrows, then widens again into a chamber whose floor is a lattice of boards over flowing water. The current glints amber in your lantern. Main drain, Ned says proudly, built by Bazalgette himself. Every flush in the empire passes through here first. He pats a pipe affectionately. Ain't she grand? You agree she's magnificent, in the way volcanoes are magnificent, best appreciated from a distance. He tells stories as you walk, of men who fell in and came out saints, of gold rings sifted from muck, of lost letters that floated for years before reaching the sea. You listen, half disgusted, half enchanted. Above you, unseen carriages rumble like distant thunder. The world continues its polite routine, unaware that beneath its polished boots, a river of confessions rushes past every hour. The air grows warmer. Steam veils the lantern. Ahead you hear music, faint, jaunty, impossible. He winks. That'll be the rat picked. You mishear. The what? He grins wider. You'll say. The tunnel curves, and suddenly you do. An open cavern lit by hanging cages of lamps. Dozens of people crowd around a circular pit lined with boards. The smell is equal parts beer, sweat, and unresolved theology. Two men stand inside the ring, each holding a small, wriggling terrier. A referee counts down from 3. The crowd leans forward. Coins flash. Voices rise. You realize this is entertainment. Rats versus dogs. A Victorian idea of a good night out. The rats are released. A gray tide. The dogs dive faster than thought. Cheers explode. Someone sings half a hymn, then forgets the rest. Ned shrugs. Don't judge. It's honest work for both species. You watch until the noise blurs into rhythm. There's a strange camaraderie in it, a celebration of survival, however grim. When the match ends, the victors are toasted, the losers swept away, and the crowd disperses with the weary satisfaction of people who've witnessed something both awful and inevitable. Ned taps your shoulder. Come on, there's better music deeper in. The tunnel beyond slopes downward, following the smell of industry and gin. The sound of hammers joins the drip of water. You pass alcoves where men sleep sitting up, clutching sacks of bones destined for fertilizer. One stirs, mutters scripture about wages and worms. Farther along, the brick gives way to carved stone older than any sewer. Symbols twist across the walls, Roman maybe, or just Victorian wishful thinking.
Ned lowers his voice. "This part's older than money. Some say it was a river once before they trained it to behave." You step carefully. The ground here sighs when touched. In the lantern light, you glimpse half-buried timbers, bits of pottery, a child's shoe. Every inch of London is built on someone's misplaced afternoon. Ned stops at a junction where 4 tunnels meet like a crossroads of nightmares. "This is where I turn back. You keep right if you want daylight, left if you want stories." He winks. "You look like a stories sort." He vanishes the way Londoners do, between one blink and the next. You stand alone. The lantern sputters. The left tunnel waits, patient and unreasonable. You sigh. Of course you turn left. You walk for what might be minutes or centuries. The walls close in, the air thickens until each breath tastes like yesterday's arguments. Then, without warning, the tunnel spills into another chamber, this one lined with shelves. Books? No. Ledgers, soaked and swollen. Ink drips from their pages like rain. You open one. Names, dates, debts, nothing else. London keeps accounts even down here. The handwriting is beautiful, the math unforgiving. A noise above, boots on grating. Someone drops a coin that clinks through the bars and lands beside you. You pick it up. A shiny penny, new, careless. The empire sheds wealth the way a snake sheds skin. You pocket it. Finders, keepers, historians. A draft of cold air wraps around your legs. The lantern flares blue, then steadies. From somewhere deeper comes the slow clang of machinery, metal turning metal, endless, bored. The industrial heart of the underworld. You follow the sound until you reach a set of iron stairs climbing towards a faint amber glow. Each step rings like a question. At the top waits another door, this one embossed with the words, "Service access. Do not interfere with progress." You smile. That's an invitation, if ever there was one. You push. The hinges protest, then yield. Warm air rushes out carrying coal dust, oil, and music from some unseen street organ. You've reached the threshold between the city that shines and the city that sweats.
The door marked "Service Access, Do Not Interfere with Progress" closes behind you with a sigh, as though the whole century has exhaled. Ahead, a corridor glows amber with gaslight. The bricks sweat politely. The floor is paved with the kind of intention that once wanted to be marble, but lost its funding halfway through. You follow the light until it spills into a chamber that sounds alive. Voices murmur, coins clink, and somewhere a fiddle soars through a tune that never quite finds its ending. The air smells of wet wool, cheap gin, and entrepreneurial spirit. Welcome to the Thieves' Market, London's unofficial department store for items that recently decided to change ownership. The merchandise. The first thing you notice is the variety. One stall offers watches that have all stopped at moments of great drama. Another sells silk handkerchiefs still monogrammed with previous affections. A woman in a bonnet displays an array of umbrellas that only open when they feel appreciated. Beside her, a boy of about 12 is auctioning genuine sovereigns that melt suspiciously in warm hands. Every object here has a story, and none of them are believable. You pass a table stacked with books, mostly sermons and romance novels, the same thing if you squint. The vendor winks.
He says, "Lightly read," he says. You suspect he means stolen before the last chapter. A man with a tray of pocket knives sidles up. "Need protection?" he asks. "From what?" He shrugs. "Depends what you've bought." Commerce is brisk, morality is optional. The market operates on a principle older than law. If you can carry it away, it's probably yours.
The clientele are a democratic mix of the desperate and the curious. You spot a clerk still wearing his office collar, trying not to be recognized while haggling over a silver snuff box. Next to him, a sailor counts his coins twice before trading them for a map to a pub that may or may not exist. Two washerwomen argue over a candlestick, neither of them noticing it's bent in the middle like an exhausted backbone. At the center of it all sits a woman known only as Mother Flint. She runs the place with the composure of someone who's already buried most of her competitors. Her stall is a masterpiece of inventory management. Ribbons, razors, prayer books, and rumor. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. A single glance from her can reset prices, silence quarrels, and cause coins to change pockets out of pure respect. You approach cautiously. She eyes you over the rim of her spectacles, wire frames polished with certainty. "New?" she asks. You nod. "Then here's your first lesson, love. Everything down here's for sale, but time. Don't waste either." She turns back to counting buttons the color of regret. Entertainment, such as it is. At the far end of the chamber, music swells. A crowd gathers around a makeshift stage, a plank set over barrels. On it stands a man in a red waistcoat, balancing a tankard and a grin. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's sport is sponsored by Providence and Poor Judgment." The crowd cheers. You recognize the voice of Ned, your earlier guide, now promoted to Master of Ceremonies. He gestures to a wooden hatch in the floor. Two assistants haul it open, revealing a pit ringed with straw. You realize with mild horror that the rat pit you glimpsed before has gone professional. A handler releases the first contestant, a terrier named Glory, muscles quivering like moral tension. Opposite, a bucket tips and a dozen rats spill out, gray commas punctuating the straw. A whistle shrieks, the crowd roars, and history demonstrates its peculiar idea of entertainment. The fight lasts less than a minute. When it ends, Glory is triumphant, the rats are philosophical, and the audience is ecstatic. Coins fly, bets are settled, and morality takes a brief nap. You edge back toward the wall, half appalled, half fascinated. A man beside you offers roasted chestnuts. You decline, uncertain of their ingredients. He laughs. "Suit yourself, or all meat to someone." A break in the noise. As the crowd disperses, you notice a narrow passage behind the stage. A sign above it reads, "Quiet business only." Curiosity, that great Victorian vice, wins again. You slip through. The passage leads to a smaller room lit by a single lantern. Here the trade is more specialized. Forged papers, duplicate keys, and information priced by the syllable. Two men whisper over a map of the sewers. Another sharpens a chisel with devotional care. In the corner, a printer's press thumps out counterfeit theater tickets, each one slightly better than the original. A girl of 16 manages the accounts. She doesn't look up as she says, "Mind your hands, sir. Ink stains last longer than guilt." You thank her. She corrects you. "Don't thank me. Pay me if you learn something worth keeping." You realize the city's true economy isn't built on pounds or shillings, but on secrets properly folded. An unexpected performance. A sudden commotion from outside draws everyone back to the main hall. A constable has appeared at the entrance, lantern held high like a moral certificate. The crowd freezes. For a heartbeat, the whole market holds its breath, weighing honesty against convenience.
Then Mother Flint claps her hands once. Lamps go out. In the dark, dozens of footsteps scatter, stalls fold, walls pivot, and the constable finds himself alone in a perfectly legal wine cellar. You watch from a shadow as he sniffs, mutters, and departs. Moments later, the lights relight, commerce resumes, and someone toasts the efficiency of civic engineering. Mother Flint catches your eye. "See, dear, progress. We close faster than Parliament." You smile. She waves you toward a tunnel at the rear. "If you're done shopping, that way'll take you to the river. Mind the ladders. They've got opinions."
You follow the tunnel Mother Flint indicated. The noise of the market fades behind you until only the drip-drip of condensation keeps time. The floor tilts downward, damp enough to reflect your lantern twice, once in water, once in imagination. The latter appears without warning, iron rungs bolted to brick, slick with generations of hurry. You test one. It wobbles like a politician's promise, but holds. Down you go, each step a sigh, each echo a rumor. Halfway down, you hear voices below. Not the brisk chatter of commerce this time, but something slower, laughter wrapped in fog. When your boots finally touch ground, the air changes temperature. Smoke drifts in layers thick as velvet. The lantern flame leans sideways, dizzy. You've reached the part of London that dreams even when awake. Section 5. Opium dens and sleepwalkers. The first thing you notice is how quiet everything is. The city above roars like an orchestra. Down here, the music has forgotten its instruments. A dozen narrow rooms open off a corridor, each with a curtain instead of a door, and a name painted above it: Lotus, Serenity, Credit Extended. Inside the nearest cubicle, a man lies on a wooden bunk, pipe resting across his chest like an exhausted flute. The smoke rising from it spirals lazily toward the ceiling, forming brief shapes, ships, birds, excuses, before dissolving. His eyes are open but unoccupied. You whisper, "Hello." He smiles at a private constellation. A woman in a faded kimono glides past, carrying a tray of lamps. Her hair is threaded with silver pins that catch the light like small opinions. "No shouting," she murmurs. "The dreams are delicate." She replaces your candle with a lamp whose glow feels warmer than good manners. "You're welcome to look," she says, "but don't inhale unless you mean it." The patrons. The clientele of the den are drawn from every class that ever pretended not to exist. You see sailors asleep beside surgeons, clerks beside courtesans, poets beside people who think they're poets. Their differences have melted into the same waxen stillness, like candles that surrendered in different languages. A pair of soldiers sit cross-legged, sharing a pipe. One hums a lullaby in French. The other keeps time on his knee. Every now and then they laugh at something invisible. You realize that in here, the empire's borders dissolve faster than morality. At the far end, a preacher in plain clothes recites fragments of the Psalms between puffs. "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures," he says. And someone answers softly, "Amen," though no one knows if they're agreeing or remembering. The keeper of the place. Behind a beaded curtain sits the proprietor, Mr. Chang, though you suspect the name is as authentic as half the merchandise in Piccadilly. He wears a velvet jacket and an expression of perfect arithmetic. Every breath drawn in this room adds a coin to his invisible ledger. "You lost or curious?" he asks without looking up. "Both," you admit. He nods as if that's the only honest answer. Curiosity costs less. He tells you that opium arrived in London the way everything does, by ship, by empire, by the notion that comfort should travel first class. It began as medicine, became recreation, and ended as policy. Every dream, he says, eventually needs an import license. He gestures toward the sleepers. They come for silence, not sin. The noise up there hurts more than the smoke down here. Hallucinations in the hallway. You move on. The corridor bends. The smoke thickens until walls and floor trade places. Shapes drift through it. Memories or customers. Impossible to tell. The lamps dim one by one, either from lack of oil or from embarrassment. For a moment, you think you see the Thames running through the room, miniature and shimmering, carrying toy barges of light. Then you blink, and it's only a puddle, reflecting someone else's candle. You realize this is how London survives its own weight, by forgetting on purpose. The opium dens are the city's unacknowledged exhalations, breathing out everything it can't confess. A voice behind you whispers, "Care for a story." It's Ned again, or maybe just the echo of him. He leans against the doorway, eyes red but amused. "Didn't expect to see you in the Cloud District." You ask how he finds his way through all this. "Easy," he says. "Follow the debt. It always leads home." He offers you a pipe. You decline. He shrugs, inhales, and for a moment looks almost content. "Careful, friend," he says through the smoke. The city dreams back. An interruption from reality. A shout slices through the haze. "Raid!" Suddenly the den erupts in slow motion. Curtains rip open, lamps overturn, sleepers sit up protesting that they were innocent of being awake. Somewhere, a constable's whistle shrills, the sound of virtue arriving late. Mr. Chang extinguishes lamps with practiced speed. "Gentlemen, the night is over." He pulls a lever hidden behind the curtain. A panel in the wall slides open, revealing another tunnel. You follow the crowd as they vanish into it like startled ghosts. The passage slopes upward, the air clearing with every step until you burst out into the alley behind a laundry. Steam billows from vents, covering your escape with the smell of soap and irony. The constables rush past the front door, none the wiser. Mr. Chang appears beside you, dusting his cuffs. London, the only city where sin has a closing time. He tips his hat and disappears into the fog. You stand alone, lungs full of smoke that isn't yours, heartbeat sinking with the drip of water from the eaves. The night feels thinner now, stretched between sleep and consequence. You turn toward a faint glow at the alley's far end. The bricks there are cleaner, the air sharper, tinged with disinfectant and ambition.
A brass plaque catches your lantern light. St. Swithin's College of Surgeons, Anatomy Rooms and Demonstration Theatre. You found the place where curiosity stopped pretending to be polite. Inside, the corridor gleams. Gas lamps hiss along the walls like cautious applause. The floorboards are scrubbed to the color of bone. Somewhere deeper, metal clinks on glass, a rhythm halfway between surgery
and symphony. You pass a door labeled Dissection in Progress, Visitors Welcome at Own Risk. The invitation is pure Victorian, sincere, threatening, and perfectly spelled. You push it open. The smell meets you first. Not rot, rot is honest, but preservation, spirits of wine, carbolic acid, and ambition. It's the aroma of progress pickled for later reference. Rows of wooden benches rise like an amphitheatre around a central table. On it lies the lesson of the evening, politely covered by a linen sheet. The audience, students, surgeons, and one lady journalist pretending to be a widow, leans forward in collective anticipation. At the front stands Professor Grindle, a man whose moustache has tenure. Gentlemen, and the occasional moral observer, tonight we continue our study of the human miracle, recently deceased, of natural curiosity. He whips away the sheet, a few gasps, mostly from beginners, veterans simply sharpen pencils. You find a seat near the back. The bench is sticky with generations of enlightenment. The air hums with equal parts fascination and lunch. Grindle gestures with his scalpel like a conductor with very specific interests. "Observe," he says, "how Providence arranges its plumbing." He opens the chest cavity with the smooth confidence of a man who has done this before breakfast. The students lean closer, taking notes that will one day impress both examiners and nightmares. You realize Victorian science is a theatre that charges by the organ.
The Resurrection Men. During a pause, Grindle announces, "Tonight's specimen was provided through legitimate channels." A ripple of ironic laughter follows. Everyone knows what that means. At the back of the room, two men in caps shift uncomfortably. Their boots are muddy, their consciences economical. Resurrection men, professional recyclers of the recently expired. They dig by night, sell by dawn, and maintain a strict professional ethic. Never ask how the body died, unless you need to haggle. One of them catches your eye, winks. "Don't worry, love, we only borrow." His partner adds, "Science pays the interest." You wonder how many discoveries began with a spade and ended with applause. A lecture on hygiene. Grindle moves on to discuss sanitation. He brandishes a jar containing something that once had ambitions of being a lung. "Gentlemen, the city itself is a body. Its sewers the bowels, its factories the liver, its stock exchange perhaps the spleen. When any part becomes inflamed, the whole organism suffers. Cleanliness, therefore, is patriotic." He pours a measure of carbolic acid over his hands and immediately regrets it. The students applaud anyway. Victorian medicine adores metaphor almost as much as it distrusts germs. You imagine the city listening from beneath your feet, wondering which part of itself just got diagnosed. The lecture theatre at midnight. The lecture ends, students disperse, and the lamps dim until the room glows like the inside of a lantern. You linger, pretending to study the charts. When the last footsteps fade, another figure emerges from behind a curtain. A woman in a blood-spattered apron, sleeves rolled, eyes sharp as scissors. "You're still here. Curious or lost?" You give the usual answer, "Both." She smiles. "Good. Curiosity keeps the lights on." Her name is Dr. Ada Merrick, assistant anatomist, unofficial miracle. In a world that barely believes women have skeletons, she's been dissecting them professionally for years. She opens a cabinet of preserved specimens. Inside float dozens of organs, each labeled in her neat hand. Heart, worn. Liver, optimistic. Brain, unimpressed. She taps the glass. Every one of these once paid rent. Now they teach. You ask how she endures the smell. After a while, she says, you stop noticing. Like marriage or Parliament. She hands you a notebook. It's filled with meticulous sketches, arteries drawn like railway maps, nerves branching like philosophies. I draw them to remember they were people, she says softly. The men upstairs draw them to forget. For a moment, the laboratory seems almost holy, an altar to understanding built from contradiction.
Dr. Merrick gestures for you to follow. Together, you climb a short staircase into the attic laboratory, a space suspended between curiosity and confession. Beakers line the shelves like captured lightning. Each holds a liquid with a personality problem. On one table stands an apparatus of brass pipes, flasks, and optimism. Professor Grindle's new invention, she says. He calls it the vitality condenser. He believes electricity can persuade dead tissue to apologize. She flips a switch. Somewhere beneath the table, a generator coughs to life. Sparks race along copper coils. The smell of ozone joins the familiar perfume of formaldehyde. On the slab rests a severed frog's leg wired to electrodes. When the current hums through it, the limb twitches politely. Ada's eyes shine. It's not life, she murmurs, but it's enthusiasm. Science by candlelight. She invites you to hold a second wire. The static prickles your fingers. The air itself seems to exhale. In that instant you realize how Victorian progress really works. Half inspiration, half hazard, mostly paperwork. Below, through the floorboards, you hear the echo of Grindle's voice addressing another group. Earnest applause, punctuated by an occasional faint scream. Medicine in this century resembles faith healing performed by engineers. Ada disconnects the current. Enough miracles for one night. She pours the remaining acid back into its bottle with the care of someone returning a borrowed temper. Don't mistake them for villains, she says. They want to help mankind. They just haven't met her yet. A secret drawer. Before you leave, she opens a drawer beneath the desk. Inside lie dozens of glass slides, each labeled with a name rather than a number. Samples, she explains. Unclaimed patients. If I write their names, they stay people. You read a few. Eleanor F., chimney sweep's daughter. Mr. Abel Trent, philosopher, partial. Unknown infant, 2 pounds, born and buried same day. Ada closes the drawer gently. London eats its own. We simply catalog digestion. She hands you a small notebook. Take it. Notes on the body's resilience. It might remind you there's beauty under the bruises. You protest, she insists. Everything down here wants to be remembered, even you. Departure. You step back into the corridor. Gaslight flickers along the polished rail. Behind you, Ada hums a lullaby for skeletons. Ahead, the exit door waits, stamped to post-mortem yard. Outside, the night greets you with drizzle and the comforting stench of civilization. You look once over your shoulder. The windows glow faintly. Each square of light, another heartbeat borrowed from eternity. A carriage rattles past carrying crates marked specimens, handle without philosophy. You let it go. Some lessons travel best in darkness. The clock of St. Paul's strikes 2. Somewhere, a newspaper press begins its nightly thunder, turning fresh discoveries into tomorrow's breakfast reading. You tuck Ada's notebook inside your coat. It feels warm, alive. Or maybe that's just you deciding to be. London exhales. The fog rolls east, taking you with it toward the river,
and the next chapter of the city's long insomnia. The street narrows until it forgets its own name. Fog drifts in soft curtains, catching the gas lamps and turning them to bruised halos. Here, between the respectable heart of the city and the river's restless edge, London's night women conduct the second shift of civilization. They are its laundresses, its seam menders, its whisperers, and its mirrors. Everything polite London touches by day, these women finish after dark. You follow the sound of water and rhythm, ringing, scrubbing, the metronome of soap on fabric. A low arch opens into a courtyard, bright with steam. Dozens of women bend over troughs, sleeves rolled, hands raw. The smell is half lavender, half exhaustion. This is the wash-house, the empire's unofficial lungs. Every sheet that flutters on Mayfair's balconies first gasps for air down here. "Mind the bucket," someone calls, and you step aside as a girl no older than 15 drags a pail nearly her own weight. Her hair is pin-tight, her accent sharper than the mangle's teeth. She grins at your lantern. "You new to laundry are just lost." You answer truthfully, "Lost." She laughs. "Then you'll fit right in." Around her, the women work by instinct. Scrub, rinse, twist, stack. They trade gossip as currency. Which factory cut hours, whose landlord raised rent, whose cousin married rich and sent back only postcards. Between jokes, they hum hymns, not for piety, but for pace. The steam coats everything with honesty. You could not hide nothing here if you tried. At the far wall, an older woman stirs the great copper boiler with a paddle the size of dignity. The heat paints her face gold. "Soap and sin, love," she says without looking up. "That's London in 2 ingredients." She tosses another bundle of rags into the froth. "You can't keep clean, but you can keep trying. That's worth the same." Smoke and streetlight. Outside again, the air bites colder. The fog has thickened into an occupation. Lanterns glow like commas, pausing between paragraphs of darkness. From somewhere downriver comes the thin song of a hurdy-gurdy, accompanied by laughter that isn't sure it deserves itself. This is Lambeth Walk, the unofficial border between work and want. Here, women sell flowers by day and possibilities by night. They lean against lampposts like punctuation marks in the city's endless sentence. Each wears a shawl more memory than fabric and a look that says, "I know exactly how much you're worth, darling. Don't make me prove it." A constable ambles past, moustache heavy with moral authority. The women melt into doorways, re-emerging the moment he's gone. One calls after him, "Evening, officer, you dropped your virtue again." The laughter that follows is tired but undefeated. You stop beside a girl selling violets from a basket. The flowers are half frozen, their scent fighting the fog. She offers you one. "For luck," she says. "6p if you've got it, a smile if you don't." You hand her the coin. She tucks the bloom into your lapel with surprising gentleness. Luck likes to be noticed. Factory girls. A bell clangs somewhere inland. Shift change at the glassworks. A river of women flows from the factory gates, faces shining with sweat and determination. Their laughter carries a note of victory. Another 12 hours survived. A foreman barks something about quotas. They answer with a chorus of "Aye, sir," that means no chance. You follow them to a public house where they trade copper coins for mugs of porter. Inside, the air is thick with steam and opinion. A fiddler plays a tune that could either start a fight or a romance. One girl toasts the Queen, another toasts her landlady's immediate relocation to Hades. The mugs clink, and for a moment the empire feels almost democratic. You sit at the edge of a table while conversation spins like thread. They talk about husbands at sea, babies at the wet nurse, the price of candles, the rumor that gaslighting causes madness. One laughs, if that were true, every man in Parliament would be barking. They all drink to that. When closing time arrives, the landlady herds them out with the efficiency of a shepherd. The street swallows them again, each turning down a different alley towards sleep, or something pretending to be it. You linger long enough to realize the silence they leave behind is heavier than noise.
The fog thins for a moment, and you catch a flicker of real flame behind an unmarked door. A brass bell above it trembles but never rings. You push, it yields. Inside, warmth folds around you, coal fire, spilled gin, perfume that's seen better days. Candles crowd the mantelpiece, their wax pooling into pale maps of melted continents. A woman in a crimson gown looks up from her sewing. "You're late," she says, though you've never met. This is the Half Moon House, one of 1,000 small refuges that masquerade as sins. The women here rent both rooms and reputations by the hour. Some are older than the furniture, others younger than the lies that brought them. She waves you toward a chair. "Don't stare, love. We're just shift workers with better lighting." The laugh that follows has edges of glass. In one corner, a girl tunes a guitar with the precision of someone who once believed in music. Another studies her reflection in a cracked mirror, practicing expressions, mirth, mystery, mercy, trying to remember which sells fastest. "Men think we live in shadows," the crimson-gowned woman says, threading her needle. "Truth is, we live in glare. Candles kinder than daylight, hides the unpaid rent." She nods toward the window, where frost flowers bloom on the glass. "Besides, out there they freeze. In here we roast. Life's a matter of temperature, not virtue." You ask if she ever goes outside. "Only to church," she says. "Best customers there. They pay with promises, which never bounce because they're never cashed." Penny rooms. Upstairs, the hallway groans beneath 100 footsteps past. Each door carries its own arithmetic. How much for warmth? How long for illusion? A maid with candle and ledger moves between rooms like a polite ghost. She murmurs rates, notes payments, douses quarrels before they spark. You peek into one open doorway. A small space no larger than a confession booth. 2 people sit on the bed, fully clothed, sharing silence. Not everything for sale here is skin. Sometimes it's the luxury of being looked at kindly. Downstairs, a piano limps through a waltz while someone hums the missing notes. The room smells of powder and possibilities. The door opens and closes in steady rhythm, the city breathing through it. Outside again, the chill feels almost medicinal. You walk until the houses shrink to sheds and the lamps surrender to the moon. The Match Girls. By the docks, a faint glow burns like defiance. You follow it to a shed where a dozen girls sit at benches, dipping wooden sticks into trays of phosphorus. Sparks hiss as the mixture dries. The air stings your throat. They are the Match Girls, the smallest cogs in the Empire's great machine of light. Their hands are yellowed from the chemicals, their smiles whiter from the same poison. One girl grins. "We make the fire that burns us, sir. Poetic, innit?" She shrugs. "Still, better than starving." You notice a poster tacked to the wall, "Strike for fair pay, fair air." Someone has drawn a halo over the word strike. In the corner, a list of names,
each followed by the date she last showed up. Some lines end mid-word, as if the writer got tired or disappeared. A girl offers you a match. "Take it," she says. "Light's light, even borrowed." You strike it. For a heartbeat, the room blazes golden. Their faces shine, young, weary, absolutely unbreakable. Then the flame dies, and you're left with the smell of sulfur and stubborn hope. The Nighthawkers. Farther along the riverbank, small fires flicker in old tins. Around each flame, women cook what passes for supper. Potato ends, tea brewed from suspicion. They call themselves Nighthawkers, part vendors, part survivalists. One sells roasted chestnuts, another mends umbrellas with wire and prayer. A third offers songs for a penny. You sit beside them, sharing heat. Conversation drifts like smoke. Who was arrested, who married, who vanished into the workhouse. Laughter surfaces between the sentences, fragile but real. A woman with one boot and infinite dignity pokes the fire. "City don't want us, but it needs us. Who else keeps the nights company?" She looks up at the stars, or maybe the gaps in the smog where stars ought to be. They say heaven's above. Maybe so, but we're the ones minding the door. You hand her the last coin in your pocket. She shakes her head. "Keep it. Luck spends better when it's yours." Candlelight confession. As dawn seeps into the fog, the fires shrink. The women pack their baskets, gather their shawls, vanish into alleyways narrower than forgiveness. You stand alone with the match still blackened in your fingers. The river carries the first light of morning like a secret it hasn't decided to tell. Somewhere, a church bell insists on holiness. Somewhere else, a factory whistle insists on punctuality. Between the two, these women walk home, past judgment, past pity, straight into the next day. You realize that if the city ever truly stopped, it would be these hands it missed first. Section 8. The Ghosts of Industry. A. Morning arrives, not with sunlight, but with machinery. The fog thins just enough for you to see the city's lungs begin their daily exercise. Chimneys stretch, yawn, and start exhaling soot. The sound of hammers replaces the birds. Welcome to the industrial daybreak, a symphony of iron, ambition, and very tired men. You follow a road paved in coal dust until the world trembles beneath your boots. Ahead rises a building so large it seems to have invented the concept of walls. Arched windows, black smoke curling through every crack, gears visible even through the brick. A sign over the gate reads, "Merriman and Sons Ironworks." Someone has scrawled underneath, "and daughters if they're cheap." A foreman waves his notebook like a weapon. Men in soot-polished coats stream inside, lunch tins clanking like metallic hearts. The air smells of oil, sweat, and raw possibility. A whistle screams, one long, merciless note, and the day officially begins. Inside the foundry, heat folds over you, heavy as guilt. The floor glows faintly red where molten metal has recently had opinions. At the far end, enormous crucibles tilt, pouring liquid fire into molds that hiss and spit. Each splash could write a sermon about cause and effect. Workers move through the glare in choreographed exhaustion. Their faces shine with the same light as the metal. It's hard to tell where the furnace ends and they begin. One wipes his brow with a rag that promptly catches smoke. Another laughs, the kind of laugh that means, "still alive."
Over the din, the foreman shouts orders no one truly hears. He could be reciting poetry. The rhythm would stay the same. Above him, a gallery of clerks keeps score in ledgers, turning sweat into arithmetic. Every thud of hammer becomes a number. Every number becomes profit. Thus the empire breathes. The child on the conveyor. In the corner, near a machine that sounds like the future choking on itself, a boy feeds coal into a hopper. He can't be more than 8. His hands are quick, his eyes slower. Someone has tied a rag around his mouth against the dust, though optimism would work just as well. You ask his name. "Tom," he says. "How long have you worked here?" He shrugs. "Since I was smaller." You notice a scar tracing his wrist like handwriting. He catches you looking and grins. "Machine kissed me. We're engaged." Then he tosses another shovel of coal and disappears behind the steam. Victorian childhood, an apprenticeship in endurance. Steam, steel, and the illusion of progress. Through an archway lies the main hall, roof lost in smoke. Here the machines stand in rows like altars. Pistons rise and fall, flywheels spin with devotional zeal. Every movement is a prayer to efficiency, answered in noise. A poster near the door announces, "Safety is everyone's business," tacked above a pile of bandages that suggest otherwise. Next to it hangs a clock stuck forever at 12. Lunchtime or doomsday no one remembers. You climb a staircase to the overseer's platform. From up here, the factory looks like a captured thunderstorm. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Pound, hiss, grind, breathe. It's almost beautiful if you forget to listen too long. A man beside you says, "Magnificent, isn't it?" His suit is clean. His hands are theoretical. He introduces himself as Mr. Lanyon, investor. "The machine," he says, "is the purest expression of order. It never drinks, never lies, never unions." You ask about the people who feed it. He smiles kindly. "They're replaceable parts, dear fellow. Progress demands spares." He tips his hat and leaves, stepping daintily over a puddle of grease that used to be a week's wages. The whisper of looms. Outside, the wind carries another rhythm, a thinner, faster beat. You follow it to a low warehouse where rows of windows blink like tired eyes. Inside, weaving machines clatter, their shuttles darting like swallows in captivity. Women sit at each loom, feet pumping treadles, fingers flicking threads that blur into cloth. The air tastes of cotton dust and caffeine. A sign nailed above the door reads, "Time is money. Don't steal either." Someone has underlined "time" in chalk until the word nearly disappears. A girl at the nearest loom lifts her goggles and squints. "Are you watching or helping?" "Watching." "Then stand back. We like our spectators whole." The floor vibrates with every stroke of the machinery. Threads snap, foremen shout. A bell rings for tea that never arrives. In a corner sits a broken loom draped with a shawl, a memorial to both machinery and worker. A placard leans against it. "She coughed, we noticed." You want to say something comforting, but the noise drowns empathy. Here, compassion requires earplugs. The railway workshop. By afternoon, the foundries empty into the yards. Trains squat on parallel tracks, black giants panting in steam. Men crawl over them with hammers, polish, and curses. Someone shouts for a wrench, someone else hands him a sandwich. Progress runs on tools and tea in equal measure. You climb onto a platform beside a new locomotive, shiny, arrogant, perfect. An engineer wipes his hands on his overalls. We call her Victoria's Mercy. Bit of a joke, that. He pats the boiler affectionately. She'll haul 50 tons of coal and not complain once. Pity people ain't built the same. A whistle shrieks, testing its lungs. Pigeons explode skyward. The noise fills every gap in the city, echoing off the river, bouncing down alleys, shaking dust from the dreams of anyone still asleep.
You follow the line of track until it dives beneath a brick arch and into a tunnel. The air grows warmer.
thick with the perfume of iron and damp stone. A lantern swings on its hook, casting ribs of light across the soot-slicked walls. Somewhere ahead, a hammer rings a single note over and over, London's heartbeat with a cough. A man in a leather cap crouches beside the rail, tightening bolts. His hands are black up to the elbows, his eyes bright as the sparks he makes. "First day?" he asks. "Just passing through," you say. He grins. "Everyone's just passing through. The trick's not to stop." He wipes his forehead with a rag already blacker than logic. "Name's Jonah. Been here since the first train ran. Never saw daylight right after. Hurt my eyes." He taps the rail. "This is where the city breathes, mate. Pumps it in, pumps it out. Air, smoke, people, it's all circulation." You walk with him deeper until the tunnel opens into a vault of dripping brick. Half a dozen men shovel coal into the gaping mouth of a stationary engine. The furnace roars like applause. Each shovel load vanishes into brightness. Each man glows briefly before fading back to shadow. Jonah nods toward the blaze. "Souls for the boiler," he jokes. "Still cheaper than gas." The miners beneath the metropolis. Far below these tunnels lie the coal seams that feed them. You've heard the stories. Men crawling miles underground, candles tied to caps, singing to prove they're still breathing. One shaft entrance hides behind a brewery near Rotherheath. You descend its ladder because apparently you haven't learned. The shaft smells of stone, damp rope, and the patience of centuries. When your boots hit bottom, darkness folds around you like a handshake. A boy guides you forward, barefoot, lamp in hand, humming something between hymn and habit. The passage is barely tall enough to crawl. The air thickens with coal dust until every breath tastes like pennies. At a bend, the roof widens into a chamber where 6 miners hack at the wall with rhythmic stubbornness. Each swing sends a rain of glittering black fragments. Their faces are painted with sweat and soot until expression becomes theory. One stops to drink from a tin, gestures with it. "Think the lords up top ever dream of this? Doubt they sleep, too busy counting what we make 'em." You watch until your eyes start inventing light. The boy tugs your sleeve. "Best go up now, sir. When the lamps go dim, the air's thinking of quitting." You obey. When you emerge again into the railway heat, daylight feels like a chemical. The inventor's quarter. Not far from the foundry stands a row of workshops humming with quieter madness. This is Clerkenwell Green, home to tinkerers, dreamers, and accidental explosions. Through every window, silhouettes bent over workbenches, gears turning in small rebellions. You peer into one open door. A man in spectacles polishes a brass cylinder until it gleams with self-regard. "Steam prosthetic," he says proudly. "Lost my arm, built a better one. Stronger, though it whistles in bad weather." He flexes the mechanical limb, and it sighs like a kettle. In another workshop, a woman adjusts a clockwork bird that insists on quoting Shakespeare every hour. She smiles. Only line it knows is, "Oh, brave new world." Seems enough. Every street here smells of oil and invention, hope distilled into metal filings. Yet even here, poverty polishes genius thin. Most of these machines will end as curiosities in some gentleman's cabinet, their creators forgotten, except for debt collectors. Still, the noise is cheerful. You imagine the city listening, delighted by its own cleverness. The ghosts themselves. Night returns almost unnoticed. The factories keep glowing long after the sky quits. From a hilltop, you look back and see the whole city flicker. Hundreds of furnaces pulsing beneath the fog, each chimney a candle at a funeral no one remembers arranging. The wind shifts. In its sigh, you hear the layers of London speaking at once. The clang of iron, the cough of the streets, the whispered laughter of the wash-house girls. And beneath it all, a low metallic heartbeat that never stops. The ghosts of industry are not dead men in chains. They are the living. Every worker who gave the city motion, every breath still trapped in brick dust. If you listen long enough, you can almost hear them counting strokes of the hammer like rosary beads.
praying that the next age will be kinder, or at least quieter. You close Ada Merrick's notebook and whisper into the smoke. Rest, if you can. The rain stops. Sometime before morning notices. You walk along the embankment with the lamps burn pale as old paper. Across the river, the factories sigh out their last smoke, and the sky begins to think about color again. The city feels hollowed, but awake, like a giant that has been talking in its sleep all night. At a corner where Fleet Street forgets itself stands a narrow shop with no name, its window filled with clocks. All are ticking, none in unison. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of brass and candle wax, time measured in mechanical breaths. An old man sits behind the counter, a loop in one eye, a screwdriver trembling in the other. He looks up as you enter. "Careful," he says. "The minutes are loose today." You glance around. The walls shimmer with pendulums, dials, and glass domes. In the center of the room stands a huge clock taller than a man, its face engraved with constellations instead of numbers. The hands move not by gear or weight, but by something like willpower. "You mend time?" you ask. He smiles. "No, I only remind it to behave." The story of the clock. He tells you he built this masterpiece 40 years ago when the first railways promised to connect everything. Before trains, he says, every town kept its own hour. Noon in Bristol was 10 minutes late to London. The empire ran on argument. Then they asked us clockmakers to make time obedient. He winds the mechanism with a key the size of history. The gears turn reluctantly, like philosophers waking up. "I thought it would bring order," he says. "Instead, it brought schedules." He laughs softly. "We gave the world punctuality and took away surprise." The big clock hums, its hands circling once, twice, then settling on midnight, though it's dawn outside. He taps the glass. Sometimes she remembers another hour. You ask what keeps him working. He shrugs. Hope, habit, and the rent. Same as everyone. The city as a machine. You notice that each smaller clock in the room seems to echo a part of London you've already seen. One ticks like the looms, quick, anxious, relentless. Another chimes at odd intervals like church bells arguing with factory whistles. A third wheezes softly, sounding very much like the opium den breathing in its dreams. Every city has a movement, the clockmaker explains. Ours runs on gears of hunger and mercy. I just keep it wound. He opens the back of the great clock and shows you a mirror instead of machinery. See? Works fine so long as somebody's looking. In the reflection, you glimpse not yourself, but fragments of the city. The washhouse steam, Ada Merrick's notebooks, the matchgirl's yellowed smiles, the policeman's ledger, Mrs. Blythe's banner, all turning slowly, together, like cogs that never knew they were companions. The dream itself. He sits back, suddenly weary. "Last night," he says, "I dreamt the clock stopped, not broke, just stopped. And London didn't notice. The river kept moving, the factories kept burning, people still missed their trains, lovers still lied about the hour. Imagine that! A city free of time." He closes his eyes. "When I woke, I thought perhaps I'd built enough clocks." You look around. The hands on every face have frozen mid-gesture. The silence is complete, enormous, merciful.
Outside, the first sunlight finds its way through the grime and lands on the window like forgiveness. The old man opens one eye. He whispers, "Listen." You do. Somewhere far away, a whistle blows, a kettle sings, a heart starts beating. The clocks remain still. He smiles. Told you, time mends itself. Epilogue. London awakes. You step back into the street. The fog has thinned to silk. The stones gleam wet and new. Across the river, the markets stir. The forges rekindle. The laundresses open their shutters. A bell tolls 9, or maybe 10. No one cares which. You walk through the awakening city and realize every story you've collected tonight was one gear in the same impossible machine. Each thief, preacher, scientist, and matchgirl turned the wheel that keeps the giant alive. None of them will be remembered by name, but all of them are the tick between centuries. At the corner, you find the violet the flower seller pinned to your coat. It has wilted beautifully. You drop it into the Thames, and the river carries it toward the sea. The city's own clock, endlessly resetting. The sun climbs over the rooftops, pale as a promise. For the first time, London looks almost kind. And somewhere behind you, in a shop with no sign, a clock begins to tick again.